Um, I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Constance Spencer. I'm a realtor at Porcupine Real Estate. I've been a realtor for almost 6 years. And before that, I was an accountant working with real estate investors. And I've, throughout my life, owned different rental properties here and there and sold them. And now I am buying again and suggesting to many of my clients, especially first-time home buyers, to buy. Thus are doing the webinar on house hacking. We also, let's see who else we have. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Chris Nato. I work with Mortgage Equity Partners. I've been a lender for almost 20 years now. And I've seen all sorts of markets, and especially when I started back when the illegal loans were out in the subprimes, but it did force me to think outside of the box and allows me to know what will work and what won't work on a lot of loans. And don't mind my setting here. I'm in my basement workshop. My wife's upstairs cooking dinner. So I figured I'd come down to where there's some quiet.
And Jeff Day is joining mostly as a participant, but I also want to introduce him because I've asked him to jump in. He's got a lot longer experience than I do, or more consistent, I should say. I first became a landlord accidentally at 24, but.
At 24, you were 24 when you did?
Yeah, when I rented my house, yeah.
All right, yeah, you beat me by 3 years. I started when I was 27, bought my first 3-family. I've owned properties in Chichester and Concord, Rochester, Manchester, but we've had rental property for going on 24 years straight now. And yeah, I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
We also have a panelist who will be joining us just a second. He just asked for the sign-in information because I have kind of a variety of experience here, and I have somebody who's currently under contract to buy their first multifamily. So that kind of gives us what it's like from the buyer side currently in our market. And just looking through other people that are here, I see we have other landlords as well. And we have Dustin, if you want to say hello real quick, because you've got a totally different perspective. I know I just want people to know who you are. I didn't actually ask Dustin, so if you can't unmute in time, I understand. But
hey everybody, I'm a home inspector. I'm just here to learn too, so.
Yeah, sorry about calling you out like that, Dustin.
But quite all right, I don't mind.
I think that you'll have some very valuable stories, since Dustin has done many of the home inspections on multifamilies that I've sold to other buyers, and they're
always interesting.
Always interesting, yes, yes.
Especially the older ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And let's see, Amy, did Mickey join yet?
Right now, just joined.
There we go. Connecting still on my side. Mickey, we were doing introductions, and I mentioned that you're on the panel as somebody in the process, joining for the perspective of somebody who's just buying their first multifamily. If you want to do your intro.
All right then. Hi everyone. I'm Mickey Mullen. I am lived in New Hampshire for about a year and a half now, and I wanted to get a house for a growing family. And I've been walking through the process, running, hopping, leaping through the process with Constance. I'll be happy to answer questions and go through what we've gone through so far and how we made our decisions.
Yeah, especially when we get to financials, because very few of my buyers have a spreadsheet on their phone to run numbers of the multifamilies while we're looking. So that's great. All right, I'm going to screen share because we have a slideshow or slides. Yes, I don't know if this would count as a show. So Going to start our house hacking webinar. And just to let everyone know, we are recording this. So whether we'll share it or not depends on how it goes. So we did the panelist introduction. We'll just skip on past that. So what is house hacking? And I must say that house hacking is just a terrible sounding term to me, as much as I love the process. But it's a hack. We're going to try to get everyone's housing costs down to much more reasonable to build wealth faster. And that's my probably my pet project, my baby in real estate. I mean, I'll help anyone who has the means and wants to move to New Hampshire, find a house, or refer to them to somebody who can help them if they're too far from my area. But this is where I spend much of my time trying to talk, especially first-time buyers, into considering trying to not buy the most house they can get or the house they're going to live in for the next 20 years first, but to try to consider whether or not they can buy a multifamily with the full disclosure that they are buying themselves a job, but to allow their tenants to, if not completely cover their mortgage, take care of a large chunk of it. So why house hack? Well, I think everybody knows this one, right? We're all here because we want to pay less and grow our wealth. So the financing terms is something Chris is going to speak about. And the smaller down payments also is something, and the reason I've said first-time home buyers a number of times here is that there are specific financing programs that are available if you're not already a owner of a home. And Chris, do you want to jump in and cover that?
Sure. Hey, everyone. So, and Constance, if I forget to say something, please cue me in, so I don't miss anything. But if you don't own a home already, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. It's just if you don't own a home currently, then you can purchase a multifamily for as little as 3.5% down through FHA. Once you already own a home, then you're purchasing a multifamily defaults into what's termed an investment property, meaning you're not going to live in it, and that requires 25% down. So buying a multifamily as your first home at 3.5% down is really the way to go if you want to be, be a landlord and have this in your financial portfolio. Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
No. That's it's kind of a one-shot deal, Now, if you already own a house, you can always sell and buy a multifamily. It's just that no underwriter will ever believe that someone, let's say you own a single family and you want to buy a multifamily and you really are going to move out of the single family to go into the multifamily. There's been so much fraud in the industry over the last handful of years that no underwriter will ever sign off on someone leaving a single family to go live in an apartment building. So that's why we're saying if you want to do it, the time to do it is when you don't own another home. It leaves as much money in your pocket to buy another home down the road or to invest in another format.
And I don't know if this is accurate anymore, but it used to be that you could do more than one FHA loan if you had family circumstances or you're moving far enough away. Is that still the case? Like if we had out-of-state buyers who purchased an FHA multifamily and then 2 years from now moved to New Hampshire, would they qualify for another one?
Yes, but it's going to be very situational dependent. So it would definitely have to be someone that's moving to a new job that's a brick and mortar. So, a lot of people we work with can work from home from anywhere in the country. That would be really tough to do. To have one FHA go into another FHA, because you'd have to prove that you really are moving to New Hampshire to live in that home, but it is possible.
So the logical transition to owning rentals makes sense to me, based on my story and what I did. So I'll just share really quickly. I mentioned the part about being a realtor, but I actually became an accidental landlord when I moved to Alaska in my 20s and rented out my house, and my roommate / tenants were covering the entire cost. And I was already been interested in real estate from a young age, houses specifically, not necessarily the business of real estate. So then when I moved to Alaska and started a family, I suddenly had very big desire to work a lot less than I'd been working. Like, working a ton of hours is fine when you're in the tourism industry and you're having a great time. And then when you have a child on the way, you suddenly don't want to do that anymore. So I stumbled upon a book that you guys might have heard of called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I started wanting to purchase things that would put money into my pocket versus take it out. And my ex-husband and I bought a 4-plex in Alaska that gave us a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and our tenants covered the entire mortgage and all the utilities. So suddenly I was able to stay home with my 2 children, because those happened really quickly. And so that kind of put the idea in my head, and then life took me in different places. We ended up selling, made a good tidy profit on that 4-plex. And so in 2015, once I moved to New Hampshire, my marriage didn't last, and I knew immediately that my goal was to buy another multifamily. So working with Chris and working part-time at real estate and part-time as a bookkeeper, it took me about 3 years to do it. But the property that I got was big, and so the rents are quite nice, and big properties. And they just, like, if you follow the HUD for people that might qualify for Section 8 rents, my building on paper could make almost 3 times what my current mortgage is. So even living there, I was more than able to cover my mortgage. And that was in 2018. It took me making multiple offers to do that. It was already not an easy market in 2018. It's even harder now. But we can occasionally find properties. I'm gonna switch my screen sharing here. That makes sense. I helped somebody buy one in July. That's a 4-unit, and it brings in rents of about $3,000 a month for a $2,700 mortgage payment, with him living in the building. So that is indeed living for free, as we put on the house hacking invite. That's the word. So I'm going to open this up to other people as soon as I go through this one quick property, because I'm sure we'd like variety of people talking other than Chris and myself. But this one is in Rochester. It is a 4-unit, and unlike most listings, it actually came with the financials, and that's what Amy put in the slide for us. Thank you, Amy. And they actually break down, and I don't know if you guys can see this. I'll be happy to email this listing to anybody who'd like to see, but their projected rents for all, or their current rents for all 4 units is $4,400. And Chris calculated what the mortgage payment for an FHA loan would be right before we joined, and he came up with, was 29, right?
Ballpark. Yeah.
Yep. So taking one of those larger, well, if you take the biggest one, sorry guys, I should have put my reading glasses on for this. 13, you're living for free there. So, I mean, there will be some other maintenance expense. We've got the other more experienced landlords on here too, who are, and Mickey with his spreadsheet, I'm sure if I remember right, you had utilities and maintenance budgeted in there for projections, but or you're paying the rent or you're paying the mortgage and collecting the rents. And so I liked this one as an example that this is 6 days on the market right now in New Hampshire. So it is possible. And anybody want to jump in and ask a question, or we have a question section coming up, but more than happy to answer any as we go along.
I can suggest a question because it's something that that occurred to me while I was looking at places. So we're in a seller's market right now, and as a buyer in a seller's market, I face my own challenges. But as a real estate agent who walks people through this on a far more frequent basis than I personally have dealt with, what is your experience with investment properties in a seller's market?
Well, not only helping others, but also with my own purchase, like multiple offers is often necessary. Don't get too attached to the first property. Try to stay focused on your cash flow, because it's often once you make a couple offers, you're like, I'll just take anything. And you have to make sure to not do that and work with a really good realtor who knows how to structure a strong offer. I'm doing pretty well in the seller's market for getting people under contract. So I've got a few tricks up my sleeve that seem to not have completely caught on with other realtors, because obviously as soon as one person starts using an escalation clause, everybody else does. And then they start canceling each other out. So there are other ways to structure an offer that are strong. But definitely, remember, you're not buying your dream home. It will be buying yourself a job. There will be repairs.
There will be work. There is always work.
There will be work.
Yeah.
There will be bad tenants. Actually, one of the reasons I got my building was because it had a hoarder in it, and a number of roommates and a bunny that were not very tidy, and in a vacant apartment. And I was the only person who put an offer in saying the existing tenants could stay. So I got my closing costs completely paid for, even in a I'd say it was a seller's market back then. Now it's like just not even like, it's like it was a seller's market versus a buyer's market. Now it's like a seller's market versus a buyer's market. If you guys can see me, I hand gestured because I can't see me because I've got my slides on. So keeping those tenants and taking on that work is the only reason I got the building that I own.
There's something I wanted to add to all this as well, if you don't mind. It's more from the mortgage point of view, because that's where the topic seems to be. In the whole grand scheme of things, most people, when they first get into real estate, are going to buy a smaller building. They're not going to have the cash flow to get something bigger. And what that means is, with a regular residential mortgage, you can get up to a four-unit building. There's an exception to that, where if you can get a VA loan, you can get up to a 5-unit. But everything above that, then you would then need a commercial loan to pick up. So if you wanted an 8-unit building, you would need a commercial loan, or anything over 4 or 5. So, well, 5 or 6 essentially. But yeah, just wanted to make that plug in there. And commercial loans require more money down versus if you get a residential loan, then you're looking at PMI potentially if you don't put down enough. If you're like 20% or less, under 20% for the mortgage. And you back up on that, Chris.
Yeah, no,
I
you're
think-
exactly right. And something else I wanted to add too, just seeing things from my, my perspective, which Constance will see first and then I'll see it after. But I've worked with a lot of people where, it'll get into a bidding war. And I've had people walk away over $3,000 or something. And with rates where they are now, I mean, even when rates were 5-6%, which were still dream come true rates at that point in time, but when they're in the mid twos for an FHA loan, you're literally talking about $4 a month for every $1,000 on the mortgage payment. So, and this is yes, you're living in it, but it is an investment at the end of the day. And at some point, whether it's a year or 5 years or whatever, there's a good chance you'll be moving out into another multi or single or something, and this is just going to be a cash cow. But my recommendation, I've always looked at these properties as, are they making you money or are they not making you money? So sometimes I've had people get hung up on interest rate, hung up on whether the property is 10 grand more than what they want to pay. But at the end of the day, do the financials make sense? If the rate is 1% or 30%, if you're still making a large enough profit for you, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it is an investment. And I've seen, like I said, when I've seen people walk away over several $1,000s, especially when it's a really good house, just for the simple fact that they couldn't get their demands met, it blows my mind when at the end of the day, they just needed to not go to Dunkin' Donuts for one day, like out of the whole month, just one day, drive past Dunkin' Donuts, and you could have had that deal taken care of,
You're absolutely right on that.
In single family homes, I put an offer in yesterday that had an escalation clause that went 50,000 over the list price, and we didn't get it. So it's this is not what the rental market's like from what I've seen yet for the multifamilies, but I'm sure the multifamilies follow the single families. So,
and there's a reason why the rental market is not like that, because residential, you're always going to be living in it. Well, in most cases, you're going to be living in it. And so it's more about the touchy-feely side of it, where the rental side is about dollars and cents. Does it make money? People don't hold on to a property if it's not going to make money. The idea of being a landlord is you're investing in your time, your money into this place, and you're doing it because it's going to put money in your pocket. And if it doesn't, it does not make sense to buy it.
I think one of the reasons the multifamilies follow, though, is for this, at least in this category, for people that are buying their first, is because you get priced out of buying a single family home. Then you're either stuck being a renter or you have to buy a multifamily. Because Chris, maybe you should touch on the income portion of this, how you can use the rental income.
So when you're buying a multifamily, you can use 75% of the rents from the vacant units to offset your own income. Now, the largest unit in the building is always going to be designated the owner's unit. Whether you're going to live in it or not, it's just always going to be designated yours. So kind of what Constance alluded to before, if you're looking at a place, ideally the place would be consistent of 2 and 3 bedroom units versus single units. It's going to make a lot more money. The only downfall or something to keep in mind is, and this is maybe a little too technical for this, but if one of the units has, say, someone in there that's paying $800 a month, but market rent is $1,200 a month, if that person is under lease and that lease doesn't expire until several months after the closing, you'll be stuck using the current leases amount for the rental income, just on the income qualification part. But if it's a vacant unit or a unit that is month to month, then we'll be going off of what the appraiser says market rent is. And we'll be using that amount for you to help offset your income. When it comes to 3 or 4 units, you do need to have reserves. You need to have 3 months of reserves, and 1 month of reserve equals 1 month's full payment, taxes, insurance, PMI. So on the scenario for the house in Rochester, at $2,900 a month, basically you'd need to have ballpark an additional 9,000 left over after closing. That can be in 401k, it doesn't have to be in a checking savings account, but that requirement does have to be there for the 3 and 4 units too.
That's one of the reasons I liked this one. I was pretty lucky to find this on the MLS as is. If you guys can see my screen, they not only have the current income, they have potential income renovated and high-end renovations and things that you don't see very often in a listing. I mean, I can request financials, but almost always we don't get them when we're doing this, which is why Mickey and the spreadsheet you made was so great, because you could kind of make your own financials based on the info we can get. But this one, it actually had operating income, potential operating income, and a cap rate, which cap rates are good information more in the more advanced investor seminars that Mark does and myself. We will talk more about that, but this one is very specifically talking about getting where you live to pay, if not pay it for itself, pay a lot less than most people are paying for rent or mortgages. So we'll go back to the slides for a few, and unless anybody has anything they want to add right now.
The only thing I would say is for anyone that's interested in purchasing, whether it's this or a single family, whatever, but just for purchasing a home, and if you need financing, even if you're not thinking of doing anything for 6 months down the road, the sooner you and I can talk, the better, because if I can work on your situation months in advance, it will make sure that we can get you set up into the best possible spot. So if you have, I don't know, if your credit's not exactly where it needs to be, or there's a surprise on it, or your financials aren't where they need to be, there's plenty of time to get you set up to make sure underwriting is as easy as possible and you get the best rate and everything is as smooth as possible for you, versus I can't tell you how many people I've worked with that think they're all set, and then Friday night they find a house and I get a phone call and it's like, I need a letter tomorrow by noon, and then I have to, drop everything and go and rush and do that at, whatever at night, which is one thing. But the worst is if they're not in a situation, or they're in a situation where if we had to talk even a month ago or a couple of weeks ago, their financing could have been so much better. And in other cases, like I had one last weekend, where they didn't even qualify, just flat out didn't even qualify, and they could have sworn that they were all set. And part of it was because they took 80 grand out of a safe and put it into the bank, and they thought they could use that money. And unfortunately, we can't use Bitcoin, we can't use cash. There's a whole lot of things that this particular meeting isn't about, but that I can go over with you to make sure everything is as simple as possible. Because if the documentation for you is simple, it's simple for us and the underwriters, and everyone likes simple.
And I know people that I've invited, and I believe that are on this, that I've sent to you recently, that probably aren't going to qualify quite yet, but starting the process now is not a problem for either of us. Like, we want you to contact us and let us help you, because it's like that. I absolutely love selling people multifamilies.
100%. And if you're not there now, I'll put you on a game plan. I mean, we've worked with people that's taken 2, 3, 4 years for them to be in a spot. But
me?
Yeah,
I was one of those people.
Classic example. So
part-time and self-employed, I had to have at least 2 years of to prove that I was going to have the income. And
right.
And then when I started making the offers, I got turned down a bunch because I needed closing costs paid. So it took almost 3.
We have a question in the chat.
Okay.
So somebody is asking, can you FHA a 5-unit or larger?
No.
4 units and under.
No, you can FHA a 4-unit and then live for free and save up 25%, because that's my next goal, so that you can buy a 5+ unit building. But that is actually, if you have that question, you should definitely come to the investor seminar. When is that one, Amy? the one Mark's doing?
It's going to be in February. I think it's running February 22nd.
Okay. Any other questions before we kind of cover different ways to not only house hack, but if you're not an owner yet, some of these on this slide are things like renting a spare bedroom, like getting a roommate, cutting your expenses to save up for the closing costs, because right now we're not really in a market where you can ask sellers to pay closing costs, although that is a way to get into a multifamily that when we can get offers accepted like that is ideal, because again, Chris can give us an idea of what that looks like to have closing costs paid.
So
A question in the chat too, if I can just jump in here.
Please.
Sure.
It is about single family homes. Do single family houses have a much lower ROI?
I'm not a single family home investor, so I would take a very educated guess based on what they're selling for versus what the rents are right now. That would be, yes, very much different. The demand for single family home rentals is high, but you're not going to get nearly the cash flow from that, or return on investment is a different question, because of course that depends. Can you get a rural development loan and have the sellers pay your closing costs and not put any money into the deal? Like I recently had a young family do that. If they rent that house out in a year, they're going to have a great return on investment. But that's kind of more the investor seminar versus the house hacking, because you're obviously not going to be renting out a single family home while living there. So we'll come back to that for a different time. And let's cover closing costs paid though, because that is something that people might be able to do even in our current market in different further out areas, maybe not in Manchester or Nashua, which is where I'm based out of, but maybe further up in the Lakes region and Tilton or Franklin, you might be able to get a property that the seller has hold on to longer than they want to and are willing to pay closing costs. If you write, what I did when I purchased mine is I wrote my offer for over the asking price by the amount I needed in closing costs, which I worked with Chris to find out what that amount was. And the seller ended up paying all of my closing costs. So Chris, do you want to give like the ballpark of what we can ask for?
yeah, definitely. The FHA will allow the seller to pay up to 6% of the sales price towards the closing costs. Generally speaking, you'll never need that much money. But on say a $400,000, $500,000 home, closing costs on a multifamily are going to be in the ballpark of $13,000, $15,000. The big part's going to depend on the taxes and insurance, but you're going to be in that neighborhood, and that whatever the seller won't pay is in addition to the down payment as far as funds that would be required. Now, like Constance was saying, loan-wise, the seller can definitely pay for it. It's just that the market is so hot, it's very hard to find sellers that are willing to pay for it, because a lot of times they have an offer right behind yours where they're not asking for it. But that's where working with Constance comes in handy, because she can let you know based on the market you're looking in, based on the house and a lot of other criteria, if it's even possible where your offer might be get accepted, or if there just isn't a chance at all for it to be accepted.
And related to that, a lot of listing agents don't necessarily want to take the risk of an FHA loan. So that's another kind of strike against you when you're doing this strategy. You're competing with a lot of people that are out of state cash buyers. So they might not be building up the price as much, but it's a guarantee sale for the seller, where an FHA loan, you have to make certain repairs with FHA loans. And so the listing agent will tell their sellers that there's a possibility that they'll have to make more repairs if they take an offer with FHA financing. So again, when I walk through a building, I will make sure to point out anything I think that might not qualify for FHA. And if the listing agent is there, I really like to point out all the things that will make it qualify for FHA, just to see their reaction, to see if they think it will go. Because if they don't think it's going to go for FHA, they're going to put that in their they have to present all offers, but that doesn't mean they have to like encourage an offer that they don't think is going to close, because that just makes more work for themselves. So
Right.
But any questions right now, Amy, or should we cover these ideas of ways you can do this?
No further questions.
Okay, great. So duplexes, probably the easiest for people to become a landlord at the duplex, especially with your living there. You have one tenant, you don't have enough units that a lot of the landlord housing applies to you. And I don't know that exactly off the top of my head, but there is, if you're owner occupied and you have less than 4 units, a lot of the landlord tenant laws, statutes don't apply. So that's something to look into. Triplexes, and then obviously 4 units, where more units spread your risk out more. If one of your tenants moves out unexpectedly and you're counting on their rent for making a mortgage, and you have a duplex, you're in a world of hurt. You're a triplex, you got a little more leeway, and fourplex, obviously that's the best. If you can get a fourplex that has a unit you don't mind living in and can get 3 other tenants to help cover that mortgage, that's the place to be. Spare bedrooms in a single family home, spare bedrooms in a big multifamily. My multifamily that I bought has a roommate situation, so I cover the utilities and I rent the rooms individually, and it gets me more money than I would get for a 3-bedroom if I just rented it to one family and they paid their own utilities. Accessory dwellings are kind of interesting. I'm not going to talk much about it, but New Hampshire is very accessory dwelling friendly. They actually passed a law saying that towns could not keep them out as long as there was room for them. I can't remember the exact wording, and they're attached. So you can't go build an accessory dwelling 50 feet off your house, but if they're attached, they are approved. And renting parking spaces, I do that. I have a big lot in my place that I bought. So come winter time, I have rented parking spots for the winter for people that don't have parking spots. So a little extra cash flow there. And not on the slide, but I mentioned the roommate. When I was saving up to get my first, the building, I had 8 people in a 4-bedroom apartment because I had a roommate with 2 kids and I have 4 kids. So it was not the lap of luxury. So buying my own place and having a 4-bedroom apartment paid for my tenants was a nice step up. So we've already talked a lot about this. Actually, we don't really talk about VA very often, but Chris and I are working on a deal right now with somebody who's buying a multifamily 4-unit with VA financing. Do you want to?
And the reason we don't talk about VA too much is because VA will not allow you to use the rental income to help offset your own income unless you currently have experience being a landlord. So you either need to make enough money on your own to, qualify for the whole mortgage without using rental income, or have a history of having rental properties to prove that you have been a landlord. And then that gets into a questionable area, because if you have history of being a landlord, how recent is it? Because the new multifamily has to be owner occupied also with VA. So using rental income in a VA multifamily loan is extremely rare. Meeting those qualities, the guidelines, is very hard to do. but we have someone right now.
Yep.
But generally speaking, VA will usually only work if you just make enough money to qualify for the loan on its own.
And they're relocating. Their rentals are going to be far from
Exactly.
where
They're
living.
relocating. They have rentals, but they also had a single family. The single family is selling and they're moving to a new place across the country, multiple states away. So in that case, it does make sense that, and one person's retiring. So the reason is that they're buying a place and they need the other units to help offset their income because they're retiring. So there's a lot of criteria that went into making this believable that it's going to be an owner occupied loan.
And I kind of skipped over conventional, not because we shouldn't use conventional for these. We should definitely use conventional, even owner occupied. But my goal usually is having people retain as much cash in their pocket as possible when they close. But for people that are looking for better cash flow, a conventional loan, if you have the 20% to put down, is a great way to go. Makes your offer stronger, your payments will be less, and you won't be paying the mortgage insurance. So
it is 25%.
Is it? Well, I'm talking duplexes too.
Okay.
So duplexes is.
So a single family can be 20%. I'd have to double check on a duplex. If it's owner occupied, you can do 15% down on a duplex.
Okay.
But if it's non-owner occupied, I'm not sure if it's 20 or 25%. I know on the 3s and 4s, it's definitely 25%, right, no matter what, living in it or living in it.
Right. So if your Bitcoin doubled recently and you want to cash out, I don't know why, and put 15 to 25% down on conventional financing to avoid paying a higher monthly payment. Although again, if the rents cover the higher payment, then to me, it's the cost of doing business to pay the PMI. And then the other one here on the slide is a method that I don't really use, but we're going to throw it in here because it is one that I definitely see other people using around us. So if you're interested, we can talk more about that. But it's the buy, renovate, refinance. What is the last one, Amy? Reinvest? Repeat. Okay, reinvest, repeat. So since I'm not savvy on paying contractors or doing all the work myself, I'm learning slowly, but not a method I've used, but I like this one for the refinance portion. And Chris, I don't know, do you have many people that do this one?
So when you say buy, renovate, refinance, and repeat, how are they repeating it?
Taking the cash out. So the value goes up. They have enough equity.
And then buy another one conventional.
Yeah.
No, I haven't had anyone do that because the value would have to go up aggressively. Right. You're only allowed to take out on a cash out refinance on a multifamily up to 75% of the value of the home. So if you only put 3.5% down, you're already up. The value has to go up 23%.
I think this one is more. I think this is more for single families. Like if you can find a distressed single family.
Okay, well that's a different story. I haven't had many to do it. In theory, it would work. The price has to. It depends on how much you put down and how high the value goes. I mean, I have had people take money out to put towards a new multifamily or another home, but usually they've had the house for a little while just to see the type of appreciation that they need in comparison to the type of money they need to pull out of it. Yeah. But it's possible.
It is possible.
In theory, it's definitely possible.
I mean, I know that what I paid in 2018 compared to what my rental would appraise for now is already significantly different. So
exactly.
If I bought, and mine was pretty distressed. So
right. So if someone bought a home in say I don't know, 14, 15, 16, 17, and anything like that, even possibly 18, depending on what it was and where it was, it might have, say, 100,000 in, appreciation on it. And if you put 10% down on it, then sure, you can probably pull out a significant sum of money to help go towards a new home.
I should say that Porcupine Real Estate has worked with people that have done everything from sell their primary home to go back to renting so that they could buy a multifamily, so that they could then buy another single family after they have cash flow, to myself and to people that bought duplexes, bought a single family a year and a half later. I worked with these folks. I was hoping she'd join the call. Her parents have a number of rentals and they lived there, moved out, bought their forever home, kept the rental for a while, decided that landlord wasn't for them, and I sold it for them about 3 years after they bought, and the value had gone up and they were able to pay off a significant part of their mortgage for their single family home. So we've worked in a number of these scenarios. And so let's go to the I'm stopping you. And any of the panelists should be able to jump in at any time. So feel free there. And Amy is letting us know if anybody types a question. So I don't want to live next to my tenants. Me either. So I'm going to build enough wealth that I don't have to forever. But I also don't want to pay a mortgage forever for 30 years to not live by my tenants now. And then at the end, not have built the wealth that I'm building now. Also, we have property management companies that you can use where you don't know how to be a landlord. I always recommend people do it themselves for about a year at least, so that they can, one, know the process, so they know when they hire a property management company, what the property manager is taking off of them, and so they can see the value and whether it's worth it for them. But if you have a full-time job and you just absolutely don't want to deal with it, you can hire somebody to do it. I don't know how to find a place, a house like, hire a really good realtor, and I know one. So see, there's no feedback here. I don't know if you guys are.
I will 100% vouch for you, Constance.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm not saying that lightly.
And I think our next slide is just the question. So, oh no, sorry.
Before you hop to the next slide, what I
Sure.
wanted to mention is if you're going to use a property management company, one strategy you could have is the other tenants in the building don't need to know that it's you that owns it. You could hire them, and all the tenants could interface directly with the property management company. They could do all the showings, all the maintenance. They could
Jeff?
cover all that. Yeah.
Can you move your mic up a little bit?
Oh, all right. Sorry about that. What
You're
did you
really
miss?
echoey.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm using the mic on my laptop, so
Oh, okay.
apologies. How much of that did you hear? And how much
I
did
heard
say
it,
again?
but I'm not sure. Amy sent me some feedback so we'll just go ahead from there.
So yes, well, so the gist is the tenants in the building don't need to know that you are the landlord. If you use a property management company, they can interact completely solely with them. The property management company can do all the showings, all the maintenance, all the plowing, all of the lawn care. They could handle everything, and they don't need to know it's you. And that could be Sylvain or any other number of property management companies in the area that could take care of that situation for you. I know people in that situation right now. So
Right.
completely
Yep,
feasible and doable.
Yeah, I've actually told people that when I'm trying to suggesting that they're like, that they look at multifamilies because they're not finding what they want in single family, is to just not tell them. I mean, obviously it's going to be public record, especially if you're an FHA loan, your name. So I don't know, maybe don't tell your neighbors your name. So,
but if they know it's like Red Door Realty that's doing your property management,
right,
or whoever it is, then if they know you as Jeff, it doesn't
right.
matter. It just doesn't matter. You're just
Exactly.
Jeff.
But you also have to not like be overly fussy about the place while you're living there then, because you might tip them off. No, I don't think so. I mean, everybody's had that overly fussy neighbor anyway. So, I mean, that is part of it. I don't want to live next to my tenants. You also have to be detached, that your tenants are not going to take as good care of your building as you want them to. and you cannot, give yourself a heart attack over things. You kind of have to understand that tenants are going to be tenants.
May I point out the flip side to that?
Yes.
So if you are living in the same building as your tenants are, one of the things that comes up sometimes is that the landlord is the landlord is a very wealthy person who lives somewhere else. Maybe they go to Bali twice a year. You live in the same building as your tenants do, so your lifestyle is the same as theirs is. So if for some reason they're having trouble or they're feeling problems, there's a personal connection to the people who live in the same situation you do, have the same economic status that you do. So if they're not able to do things, they're less likely to stiff you if they have a personal connection to you. So there's a pro to that. It's not just con. It's not just living next to the people who you have to like have uncomfortable conversations with. They have to feel uncomfortable if they're going to do uncomfortable things as well.
True.
Yeah, and I have stories, but we're almost out of time. So I'm going to go through this slide and hopefully have time for questions. So the steps, obviously get pre-approved. We've already covered that. You'll find out your budget from working with a lender and tell me goals, definitely. Yes, I will remind you if you happen to walk into something or see the perfect house, single family house, I'm going to remind you what you told me your goals were. I do that with single family homes as well. If you tell me you want something and then you walk into something that's gorgeous and it doesn't fit your needs at all, I'm going to remind you. Study the market. I can set up an auto listing cart so that the multifamilies that are coming on the market immediately go to your email and you can start looking at those and obviously make an offer. And right now you have to make a strong offer, which looks different for different properties in different towns. And so again, experienced realtor plug there. So questions, because we are close to the end. I think Amy said we had a question in the chat.
Yeah, so how can one overcome analysis paralysis?
Make offers.
I'm only laughing because I hear so much of it.
That one, yeah, I guess it would depend on why they're stuck there. Well, knowing that you can make offers and not get it accepted might help. But yeah, that needs a follow-up. I think that is an entire 17 books in itself, is how to get us our brains to actually overcome fear and move forward. For me, I'll tell it personally. I have a blood condition that could potentially make it so I can't work in the future. Unfortunately, I got on medication and it's extremely well managed now. But in 2017, I could barely function working 2 jobs and I have 4 kids. And so my motivation was like, this is just what I have to do this. Like, this is the only potential way to make sure the kids will be covered if I get sicker. And I did, and I also got on the medication. Sorry, that's a little bit personal, but like that kind of thing, like you have to want it. If you want it, you'll get it. I sound like a motivational speaker at the moment, but
Good. I'd like to add to that too, is on my side, I would say to just, talk with me, fill out the application, send me the information I request so I can work on it and I can give you numbers. I see people analyze things to death without even having facts in front of them to analyze. They're going over a lot of different scenarios, and sometimes what they're going over could be minimized if they had more information as far as what a payment would look like, what they can do, what they can't do. I've always seen that the more information you have, that sometimes it can whittle down some of the what if this and what if that, and basing an answer on something that is an assumption versus a fact.
yeah, and hanging out with the other people that are doing it,
Definitely.
and spending time with investors.
And if I can chime in again, I would say a big deal is prioritizing your biggest needs. What are your goals? And that can help you cut through the rest of it, because there are a lot of things that can come up. Know what you really want, really what you really want.
Yeah.
Other questions, Amy? I guess I can exit out of this, and
No others.
then I might be able to see the chat.
And there's another point to make too. If you're new to being a landlord, you may have worries about knowing what to do or how to do it. And so one point I want to make is just there's a support structure out there. There are organizations like New Hampshire Property Owners Association. There's Landlord Connection as well. There are many groups in the area that can help people. I should also mention it's really, really important to screen your tenants. Without a doubt, don't forget to do it. But yeah, that's a couple of tips I wanted to share.
There's now compared to, back when I first rented my house when I was 24 and moved to Alaska and became an accidental landlord, there's websites that will run the background check for you, and your tenants just go, or potential tenants just go there, put the information in, and pay a fee to have their credit checked, and all that can be done very smoothly. I sold a duplex to somebody that used that system. I don't use it myself, but it does exist. Well, potentially somebody on the call may have looked into that. Okay, and Amy says we have another question.
Yes. So how difficult or how long would it be for a married couple with one self-employed spouse and one with a new job to qualify for an FHA loan, and they just moved to the US?
Chris.
This is something that you may want to follow up with me on outside of this call. I would need to know more information. Generally speaking, when you're self-employed, you have to have at least 2 years of being self-employed, and we also need 2 years of tax returns, and we go off of whatever you put down for income on those tax returns. I should say whatever you wrote your income down to. As far as W-2, there also always needs to be a 2-year work history, and that's
not the same job.
2 years in a similar line of work. We obviously don't want to see 8 jobs in 2 years, but if it's a couple different jobs and each job was because you're being paid more or was closer to the house, that makes sense. If it's bettering your life, that's good. If you just started a new job but you have the 2-year history and the new job is in a field that you've been working in, then that's fine. We can use that income instantly.
Yeah, I get that one a lot.
Yeah,
that's why I wanted to make sure people understood the 2 years does not have to be the same job.
Definitely not. Definitely not. And if you just got a degree, like let's say you were working at Home Depot as a cashier, but you've been going to school as an accountant and you just started at an accounting firm full time, we can use we can use that new income immediately because the degree will count as the 2 years experience.
That's good to know. I know many people that have said they're going to do it soon, and I keep encouraging them to reach out to you because or reach out to a lender. I say Chris specifically. Because you're my lender. So, but if they have another relationship, obviously we want to honor that. So.
I've used this analogy a ton of times, only because it's something that's been true for me. And I've seen it a lot. But I've worked with a lot of people that have said they're not going to do something for a while, but as soon as they start thinking about a home, they find one instantly. Kind of like, I'm not going to buy a car till March, but all of a sudden you start thinking about the car, and next weekend you're at the dealership with a new car, which is exactly what happened to me back in the fall at a dealership buying a car. I didn't have my financing set up yet, because I wasn't planning on it, but the vehicle came up that I needed. And so my recommendation is definitely to get everything, to talk with me as soon as possible, have everything set up, because when you do see the house, Constance will tell you, you need to jump on it. And if you want to put an offer in, my advice to everyone is put an offer in on that day. If you take 3 days to think about it, if it's a good house, it'll be gone.
Yeah, and one of the things of working with an experienced agent is I immediately, if you have more than 50% interest, I will find out when offers are due and how many offers they have so far, because that will help you decide as well what type of offer to put in.
And if anyone has any other financing questions, anything, please, Amy, Constance, if you don't have my information, they have it. Please just give me a call tomorrow or whenever works for you. And I'm happy to brainstorm with you, answer any questions you have, anything it takes, anything I can do to help.
And we are at 8 o'clock. So, Amy, do we have any other questions or should we wrap up there? Anybody panelists want to say a last word before we go?
Mickey has something that he might want to share if people are interested, maybe via email, since we are out of time.
Okay.
I will say briefly, I already made a more generic version of the of the spreadsheet that I used to determine what the output it was for a property. If anyone's interested, I guess contact either, can I say Amy or Constance? Or Amy, you're the one smiling. Contact Amy and I'll send it to Amy and then she can send it out.
Great. Yep. And those are all, we just scratched the surface of this topic. So are you unmuting, Morgan? Your name just popped up. All right. Well, I know I would like to answer more questions, and I'm sorry that took a little long. But feel free to message me, email me at constance@porcupinerealestate.com or Amy at same porcupinerealestate.com. So I'm gonna end it now, and hopefully we can chat more. Thanks, guys. Thanks for attending.